us here. If for the moment you'd just like to turn your video on and your microphone on so we can say hello, that would be lovely. Just to introduce myself, my name's Quentin Cook. I'm based in the UK. My original origins were in Ki Aikido, and my session today will be on how Aikido teaches us to manage conflict well, both on and off the mat. Hello, Sylvia. Nice to see you. It's nice to know who I'm talking to. So, would you like to just introduce yourself to me and tell me where you're from?
So, I'm Silviu. I'm from Bucharest, Romania, Europe. Mm-hmm. I started Aikido 6 years ago, and now I'm 1Q rank. I have a small dojo in Bucharest with one of my colleagues, Paula, and I don't know.
Okay.
That's all.
So while I'm going to do a good deal of the talking, I'm going to invite you to offer your opinions from time to time, and anybody else who's viewing. So if you do want to offer an opinion, just turn your audio and your camera on so I can see you're there. Stick your hand up and I'll give you some space to ask a question or to make a point. Morning, Judith. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. All right. So I'm going to crack on with it. So we're looking at principles we learn within Aikido to help us manage conflict well. When I started Aikido, my original starting point was Ki Aikido, as taught by Koichi Toi Sensei. He wasn't my teacher, but my teacher was affiliated to him. And I think he was a very innovative teacher and did some great favors for Aikido. He introduced some really important ideas, not actually from Aikido itself. He brought them in from yoga, actually. And he taught 4 principles for coordinating mind and body and 5 principles for practicing Aikido. They've always been a great starting point for me. How to do my Aikido, and I'd like to share them with you all in a slightly amended version. Just going to mute your microphone, Judith, if that's okay.
I just missed the last few words you said, Quentin, sorry.
I'll say it again. I just said I'm basing a lot of what I'm going to teach on the principles taught by Koichi Toi Sensei.
That's fine.
And we're going to talk about conflict. Sorry, I've muted you for the moment. So if you want to really say something, stick your hand up and I'll give you some space. Okay. All right. Right. So, and you might want to just turn your audio off, your camera off as well, because otherwise you take over the screen, Judith. So if you just turn your camera off for the moment. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay. So there are a number of forms of conflict I would suggest. One is conflict within yourself. The second is conflict with others. And the third is conflict with your situation. So COVID might be an example of how you're dealing with that. It's not another person, but it's a definite happening in the world and has an impact on us all. And you could say there's a conflict going on in that sort of situation as well. For me, it doesn't really matter what the nature of the conflict is. By the way, good morning, Michael. Nice to see you. These principles that we're going to go through really are keystones to getting through them and coping with them well. So if you'd like to just open your microphones up for a second and your cameras as well, what do you think it is that Aikido offers that helps you manage conflict?
The ability.
Do you want to say something, or shall I just plow on?
No, sorry, somebody was answering.
No, you can go first, Michael, because you're the first one to open your mic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear someone.
No, they weren't talking. I've got the other two muted at the moment. I will open them up if I want to. So did you have something you wanted to say?
Sure. I mean, I've got a whole seminar on this a little bit later. But what does Aikido offer for conflict resolution? The entire philosophical framework of Aikido is intended for conflict resolution. I think that the mindset and the structure of Aikido is all about conflict resolution. It's about best possible outcomes for both parties. It's not about zero sum, to my mind.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you for doing my job for me. Does anyone else have any views they want to share with us? Do you want to say anything?
Aikido helps one to remain calm
Yeah.
and therefore make better decisions in the best interest of everybody.
That sounds good to me. Okay, anybody else want to say anything? If you do, you need to open up your mic so that I can hear you. Or if nothing happens, then stick your thumb up and I'll open it for you. Okay, I'm going to assume that you don't. So it seems to me that the first thing you need to resolve is the conflict within yourself. So we've got some great rules that help you find that and do that for you. And I'm just going to share a screen with you. Or I'm going to attempt to anyway. Okay, you should, yeah, you've got a screen there. If you double click on that, you'll find it opens up and you should be able to read it. Has everybody got that? I'm going to assume you have. So those were the rules as originally provided by Koichi Toei Sensei to Key Society students. And actually, they haven't largely changed. I mean, last time I was practicing within a Key Society dojo, and to my knowledge, those are exactly how they describe it today. Keep 1 point, relax completely, keep weight underside, i.e. have a light feeling, and extend ki. Now, apart from relax completely, which to me actually can be interpreted two ways, I don't think they're very intelligible to anybody who's not practiced Aikido, and Ki Aikido in particular. They're a bit of a mystery. So I've tried to do my best to put those into plain English. So I'm just going to share another screen. I'm going to attempt to anyway. And it's this one. So again, you can click on, if you double click on that, it'll open up to a bigger size that you can actually read. So this is how I teach it to my students. Firstly, be centered. And I think just in common English language, we know what it is to be centered. We think of people who are centered as being level-headed, having a good view on the world, not stepping one way or another, just being in the middle, being in a good position to assess what's going on and take a measured view. And if we were able to be on the mat, we'd be testing physically how you might find that. I don't think that's my job today, although I'm very happy to discuss it if you want. But when you are in a centered place, you're just able to assess a situation much better than you would otherwise. The second, relax positively. I haven't changed that, or I have a little bit. Rather than relax completely, I've said relax positively, because relaxation to some people is curling up on a sofa and kind of watching TV for 5 hours, and there's like kind of dead energy there. And that's not what's meant by relax completely in Koichi Toei's teachings. He means an alive state. So if you think of how you are when you're in a party and you're really having a great time with friends, or you're doing something that you feel really good about, it's that kind of relaxation. You're totally in the moment. You're totally participating in whatever's going on and taking it all in. So that's what we mean by relaxing positively. The third one, which he said, keep weight underside, or have a light posture, I just say be grounded. Work with gravity. You just want to turn your microphone off, Laura and Nick. Lovely to see you. I just muted you. Yes, so you need to you can literally, as you're practicing your technique, if you say the word down, it has a remarkable impact on your technique. If you think of your feet and the sensation underneath your feet and whatever they're contacting with, you get a much more grounded feeling. So in your own time, you can try standing up and concentrating on the weight underneath your feet and what you can feel underneath you, and see how that feels and how solid you feel compared to when you think of the top of your head. It's rather different. And being grounded, again, has a meaning in English language. It means that we're solid. Again, we've got a good, clear view of the world. We don't have our head in the clouds. And the last rule, which was extend ki, I've said extend your awareness beyond yourself. Simply partake in the world, okay? Don't stare at your feet. Have a good posture. Take in what's going on around you as fully as you can, because the more you're aware, the more information you take on board. The more information you take on board, the better able you are to deal with whatever situation you're facing and come up with a good response. So I'm just going to pause there for a second. I'm going to open up you can open up your own microphones if you want to. I'm just going to ask you if you've got any questions or thoughts that you would like to share. No, nothing. Tough crowd.
Describe the type of relaxation you're talking about that isn't floppy relaxed, but the relaxation needed to do ki aikido as dynamic relaxation in order to differentiate it from what people usually mean by the word relaxed.
Yeah, it is a dynamic state. I'm just going to pick you up on one thing. It's not something you need just for ki aikido. You need it for any form of aikido. Ki aikido is just a political division of what good are, and we don't want to get into that. We're sharing this with people from all over the world and all sorts of styles. This is not something that is unique, although it's been my touchstone and something that I'm using as a solid foundation to teach aikido. I've been around a lot of countries. I've visited many, many leading teachers, and you see them talk about some of these ideas in their own way. It's not so prescriptive sometimes, but they will talk about grounding. They will talk about centering. They will talk about intent. Sometimes they talk about extending ki, although often that's a taboo word for some. And they'll talk about relaxation. So they're not unique to ki aikido, especially actually in America where Toei had a big influence. So you see that come out quite a lot. Any other thoughts?
There are many people who study. Do you want me to let somebody else speak?
No, you can talk.
There are many people who study ki aikido, who studied other forms, and I respect them a great deal. And they have the gentleness, and they're centered, and it's wonderful to train with them.
Absolutely. And I wasn't having a go at you. I just wanted to make it clear that these aren't unique to Aikido. Okay, those 4 rules are absolutely integral, because unless you are centered and grounded and relaxed, your chances of dealing with any situation you're facing are pretty poor. Pretty poor. So, it's really, really important to understand those concepts and to practice them within your own Aikido. And it seems to me that the power of Aikido is its incredible power to bring those messages home. The whole point of the study is to put you under stress. And there's nothing much more stressful than someone trying to knock your block off with a sword or a knife, or punch your face or grab you or pull you around. These things are not things that happen to most of us in our daily lives. So when it happens, it's stressful. And if you can deal calmly and in a relaxed and grounded way on the mat, then you just might stand a chance of dealing with problems better off the mat. And I think one of the great pities of our study is that an awful lot of people don't seem to see the link between what we're learning on the mat and how they can apply that in any situation off it. And that's I founded an association with my brother called Aikido for Daily Life. That gives you some sort of idea of the where my journey takes me. That's where I see this as being at. Sensei said Aikido was a way to reconcile the world, and that's my touchstone. I don't for a moment imagine that he thought the whole world would step onto an Aikido mat. So I think our job as students is to find a way of learning what he had to teach and stepping off the mat and bringing that into our families, our communities, our society, and our countries. And they're so powerful, a philosophy, they become self-evident and they can be a way to reconcile the world. But we need to do a bit more lighting of candles, I think. Okay, so having sorted ourselves out, then we'll potentially have to deal with other people who are giving us grief, or the world in general that's giving us grief. And Tony Sensei had some rules for that too, so I'm going to stop sharing that one. I'm going to open up what he had to say on that. Hang on, I need my glasses, check that I open the right one up. Okay, so if you double click on that document that's just opened in the little window, for those who have just recently arrived, it'll open up and you should be able to read it fairly clearly. And again, let me just run through what Tori Sensei had to say on 5 fundamental principles that he gave his students to practice Aikido successfully when being attacked. He said, extending your mind, knowing your partner's mind, respect your partner's ki, put yourself in your partner's place, and perform with confidence. Now, I'm quite happy with the last 2. I think they're okay, and that they make some sense. But the first 3, I think they're a translation from Japanese that actually isn't particularly helpful to the average Westerner who speaks English. So what does extending your mind mean? How can you know your partner's mind? That's a very bold statement. You might have an idea, but to actually know what's in your partner's mind, I think is a tough one. So again, I've put some time into trying to make those a little bit more meaningful for me, and I hope they might be a bit more meaningful for you. So let me just take that one off and put the next one on. Not that one. Same thing. If you double click on it, it should open up and it should be more readable. So I think the first one you can translate as rather than extending your mind, just be aware. Awareness means to have a good understanding or knowledge of the situation that you're in. So what does it mean to be aware on the mat? So again, I'm just going to pause for a second to give you guys the opportunity to tell you what you think, why awareness might be a benefit on the mat. Anyone want to stick their hand up? You can put your cameras on, by the way, then I can see whether you're sticking your hand up in the air and want to say something. Anyone want to make any offerings? Okay, Michael, good. Thank you.
I'm always happy to speak. Awareness. I mean, we need an awareness of what's going on. We need an awareness of ourselves, the world we're in, the situation we're in, and our partner's situation as well. One of the things I talk about in my course, I don't know if I'll use it today, but actually touch on Sun Tzu and his quote, know your enemy, know yourself, know the ground. So know your enemy, know yourself. victory is assured. Know your enemy, know yourself, know the ground. Victory will be total. And so I think that speaks to understanding yourself, being self-aware, understanding what's your actual goal, ultimately, not losing sight of what your ultimate goal is, what your values are, and having a sense of what your partner, the other person in whatever interaction you're in, wants, and then the framework within which you're working.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts? I'll take that as a no. Okay, so thank you, Michael. I think that's all very true. Did you want to say something, Laura or Nick? No? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes,
I was going to say,
go ahead, Laura.
Okay, I'll go first and then you can come in, Judith. I was just going to say, I think awareness is a prerequisite for some of the other things that we need to do to unify our mind and body, because we need to be aware of whether we are centered before we can center, and whether we are grounded before we can ground. So if we're aware of our mind and body, what it's doing, then we can change it.
Yeah. Let me just come back on that. One of the things I think that COVID is all teaching us is to be a little bit more mindful about ourselves and also about the world around us. So everybody's noticing stuff that they hadn't noticed that was going on before, that trees burst into leaf in the spring, that birds actually sing, that flowers grow, etc. And people are noticing these things now when they weren't before. On the mat, absolutely, that's self-awareness. Am I grounded? Am I centered? And having the techniques at hand to be able to do so if you find you're not quite there is really, really important. It is our starting point. Judith, did you want to add something?
Yes, there are different ways in which the word awareness is used, and they're all important. Like, one has to be aware of everything going on around you on the mat in order to avoid any accidents and keep everybody safe. You have to be aware of what you're doing and what you're trying to learn in order to improve. And many people also find Aikido helps with spiritual awareness.
Yeah.
I think those are the points I was wanting to make.
Good, thank you. So I'm not going to disagree with any of that or anything that's been said so far. I think it's all helpful to the conversation. But let's think about practicalities. You're faced with somebody who is now cocking a fist at you. So you need an awareness of space. You need an awareness of speed. You need an awareness of time. You need to have an awareness of intent. All of those things are crucial to compute, and compute them sometimes instantly, because that's going to determine your response. And I'm glad you added having a sense of what else is going on around you, because it may not just be one person in front of you. It could be more people to the side. And practically when we're training on the mat, we have to be aware of other people who are training as well. We don't want to throw our partner into them. So having an idea of the big picture is crucial. So that awareness brings all the information we need to give us the best opportunity to deal with the attack that we're facing. The second thing is, it's great to be aware, but if you somehow don't want to accept that, so he said, know your partner's mind. Well, awareness covers that one for me. So the third one is respect your partner's key. And there are two elements to that. There's one idea of acceptance and the other is of respect. So just because you're aware that somebody's about to attack you doesn't mean to say that you can accept the idea and going to respond sensibly to it or going to respond at all. So there has to be this inner acceptance that, okay, this person's hang on, Judith, sorry. This person's about to attack me and I need to come up with a response here. So that in acceptance of what's your situation is absolutely crucial to taking the next step. And binded with that or bound with that is the notion of respect. So somebody's trying to attack you. Why are they trying to attack you? It's no good saying, well, I don't want you to. That's a stupid idea. You actually have to respect that they're definitely going to do it, and there's a reason why. And there's no point not giving respect to what's going on in front of you. You don't have to agree with it, but you do have to respect it. Did anyone want to comment? Did you want to comment now, Judith? No?
Comment on that situation?
Well, you don't have to. I just thought you wanted to.
Yeah, I have twice been attacked. Once was by two 14-year-olds who were full of heroin, and I was working at a children's home for very troubled children, and I managed to just put icky on them gently and not hurt them. And another, it was a man at a bus stop. He kept coming and put his arm.
Your sound's breaking up, I'm afraid, Judith. So I think we're going to have to miss out on that.
Okay.
If we've got a bit of time, we'll come back to you on that. So once you've got an awareness of the situation, you've accepted what's going on, and you respect what's happened, this person is trying to do to you. The next thing is you have to put yourself in their place. So in Aikido, that means you literally, physically and mentally do your best to get into their position. So if you can stand side by side with them and look the same direction as them, you do. Some techniques you can't. So it's more like you create a circle, you create a oneness from that coming together. And you can certainly blend your mind with what they're doing. So you have to put yourself in your partner's place. And once you've got to the position where you now can begin to direct the show, finally, you have to do it with confidence. You may not come up with the right solution, but there's no point going at it in a half-assed way. You've got all the information you're going to get. You've come up with a solution that you think is the best solution. Go for it with confidence and learn from it if it doesn't work. But your best chance of making it work is to go at it confidently. So again, I'm just going to pause and say, these are principles for making Aikido work smoothly, efficiently, and harmoniously on the mat. And I just wondered what comments, if any of you had. So you can speak up if you wish to, in which case put your video on as well. And if not, I will carry on. Okay, so these are really fundamental principles, and they work incredibly well on the mat. And if you refer to them over and over again and always try to put yourself in your partner's place, it will make an absolutely massive difference to the way you do your Aikido. So when you put yourself in your partner's place, you have to physically get there. You have to match their energy. You have to try to be as one with them. And that's an attitude of mind. I can stand right by your side and decide that I'm going to walk forward. That doesn't make your partner walk forward. You have to have an idea of we want to go forward. And then your partner weirdly does tend to go with you. So actually trying to turn the two into one is an absolutely key aspect of our study. And I think Michael touched on it earlier when he was talking about not trying to win in Aikido. It should be a win-win situation where both parties are getting something out of that. And that doesn't always mean it goes the way that you initially thought it should go. That might mean that you get thrown to the floor. The win for you is that you learned something. Or that you have to back off and realize that this person's is right in this particular situation and you're wrong. Well, that's constructive. It means you've learned something. You've been open to learn something. So I think they're really a helpful set of principles. And I said somewhere in this that I felt it was incredibly important that what we learned on the mat become transferable skills off the mat. that those principles that I've just put up on the screen are something that we can use off the mat. So I've actually got a version of that which might be a little bit more helpful. So I'm going to take that one off and look for the next one. Right, there we go. Nice to see you, Jim.
Good morning.
Good morning. So again, if you just clicked in, you'll know this, Jim, that if you click on that, it will double up and you should be able to read it okay. So fundamentally, I am not changing those rules at all. I'm just putting it more in an everyday context. So if you think of the conflict that arises in your life with other people, I will bet that 99.999% of that has got nothing to do with someone pushing or shoving or putting a knife in your face or punching you or anything like that. It's mainly verbal conflict or emotional conflict. And these are where the rules of Aikido can help you negotiate your daily life. So when somebody has a go at you, it's no different to somebody trying to grab your shoulder or coming at you with a bokken. You have to use your awareness to understand exactly what's going on. Remember, knowledge is power in the sense that it gives you the information you need to work out what solutions are possible and to come to a conclusion as to which solution is going to be the right one for the occasion. When your partner or friends or boss has a go at you, there's no good taking an attitude that I'm not interested in this. God, just leave me alone. You have to accept that this is going on and you're not going to resolve it until you engage with the process. So don't fight against it. You're going to have to go with the flow a bit. And thirdly, when somebody's having a go at you, there's a fair chance that your initial response will be, no, I didn't. Or it's the black and white scenario. Whereas you have to respect that for them, your black is white and vice versa. So you need to respect their views and you need to find out why they're saying white when you're saying black. So even if you disagree with them, you have to respect their view and you have to you have to explore what it is that's making them come to that conclusion. And to do that, you have to show empathy. So you have to put their shoes on. You have to take their view of the world because that will tell you a lot. If you had come from the place that person had come from, perhaps you would have come to the same course of action or point of view. So again, you might consider where people are coming from to not have a very balanced viewpoint. But unless you understand where they're coming from, there's no way that you can guide them to a more positive place. So empathizing with people, mentally putting yourselves in their shoes and seeing things the way that they see things is no different to putting yourself alongside a partner's side and guiding them and letting their energy dissipate with a throw, effectively. If the throw is created by their aggression, you're just holding your space, really. You're not trying to win. You're just showing them that if they carry on this way, it has a negative impact, but you still care for them. And I think that's what good parents do. When their babies or children are screaming, nothing they can do to stop that. They can hold the line. They don't have to capitulate. And even in that situation, when the child doesn't appreciate it, they know they're loved. Good parents do that. And I think that's what good partners on the Aikido mat do. And that's what good people in life do. They don't bow if they don't believe it's appropriate to. They do acknowledge when they're wrong and they learn from it if they are. So if someone's when you put themselves in their shoes and you think, do you know what? I was an arsehole, then actually apologize. Agree that they actually were right and you won't be doing that again. Learn from the situation. That is a win-win because you've got rid of the conflict and you've brought the harmony about that you wanted. They don't have to agree with you. You don't have to bring them around to your position. You just need to find a solution that's going to work for the both of you. That's why I think Aikido is an incredibly powerful study that can be a philosophy that helps us to reconcile the world. I'm just going to open it up to a discussion now and see what you guys think. So feel free to chip in. Turn your videos on if you would like. I like your take on it, please. Anyone want to volunteer?
I'll start off.
Thank you, Jim. Phew.
I like what you were saying about understanding their viewpoint, even if you don't agree with it. I oftentimes find myself acknowledging that someone feels this way. I can't take away what you're feeling. I mean, that's you. That's so. I'm not trying to discount it. I'm not trying to take that away. I'm trying to understand why you feel this way. Yeah. But Aikido for me over the years has become sort of a gauge to help me understand my own life and myself. And so I think when I first started Aikido, I really didn't care where that needle was. Right? I knew what kind of person I was. All right. I didn't care if I pegged the needle in the red, like a big deal. But over the years, Aikido has become, much, much more than just this martial art, but a way for me to understand myself, understand when I peg the needle in the right or in the red, how to bring that back to where it's supposed to be, which might mean apologizing, understanding where that person was. And so, like you said, 99.999% of the time, you're not going to be in a physical confrontation. I often ask students that come in, well, I want to learn how to protect myself. I say, are you in positions often that you have to protect yourself? No, I'm not. I go, well, then, why make that the primary goal? Because 99.99% of the time, it's not going to happen. Yes, we live in a world where people are mugged and whatnot, but unless you work as a bouncer in a nightclub and you're walking on the streets at 1 or 2 in the morning in a bad area, more than likely you're never going to have to fall upon your martial art to protect yourself. So, good
Couldn't
things.
agree more. So I would say that one of the things that's happened to me, different people have different views on the grading system. I think there are great things about it and bad things about it. I've lived with a grading system all of my Aikido career, and one of the things that it has done for me is that as I've gone through the ranks, when I behave badly, I feel awful, more awful now than I would have felt when I started the art, because I just think I have a responsibility to do better than that. So it's encouraged me to strive to be a better person, and I think that's what you just said as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, as you move up the ladder, so to speak, more people are looking at you. More people are following your example, and you better hope that example is the right one, or as close to the right one as you can be. Hopefully, by the time you've reached these upper areas of the ladder, you will have made some realizations about yourself over the course of your Aikido training. That, again, we get back to the part. It's really not about fighting.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything they want to say? Judith, I think you do.
Yeah. There are advantages and disadvantages to gradings. I found them very positive in many ways because it helps one focus and grow, and you work together with the other people who are going to be graded at the same time to help each other to improve, and it can be a really positive. But for some people, it can be a negative thing, and it can bring in ideas of competition. And some schools almost go away with it entirely, like Martine, who puts people through for grading when he knows they're ready, and they always pass, they don't have to worry about what they do on the day. It's just like a demonstration. So it's different from the way we grade it.
I think it's really so much up to the teacher to make people aware of what the grading is all about, to get rid of that sort of idea of ego and competitiveness, and not to be doing it to make money, and not to just automatically pass people to maintain a standard. So you're right, it's not a perfect system, but when it's used right in the correct way, I think it is a powerful system. I'm not here really to discuss or defend the grading system. I was just really agreeing with what Jim said. Did anyone else have anything to offer about how these rules can be transferable off the mat? Michael? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Quentin, I think there's a couple of things that you've touched on here, and Jim's touched on that. I just wanted to highlight a little bit. One of the things that you mentioned was, sorry, respecting someone else's perspective is not necessarily adopting it or agreeing with it. You know, in my day-to-day, I'm a litigation lawyer, and I use this, you know, as I do teach conflict resolution skills and I coach people on this stuff. But I often find, even as a lawyer, I'm coaching my clients constantly on this stuff. And it's very important to understand that it's imperative to understand the other party's perspective in order to have an effective dialogue. And often it's a huge hurdle for people to be willing to delve in and understand that perspective, because they feel like, if I understand it, then I am agreeing with it. If I communicate understanding of it, then I'm agreeing with it, which is really not the case. You know, I think that's one point that people have a hard time with, and need some help often getting through. And at the moment, I'm afraid I've lost my other point. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, while you think about that, you've made me think of something, which was that one of the things that I think Aikido does for us is that, you know, when we're faced with a stressful situation, our default reactions are flight or flight. And what Aikido does is it gives us a third option. It gives us that middle ground to just come up with an appropriate response. And that's what I'm always I talk to my students about an appropriate response at an appropriate time. And that's good Aikido. That's when it's really smooth. You're not ahead of the game. You're not behind the game. You're in the game right at the right moment. You're not fighting. You're not running away. You're just blending with what's going on and dealing with it positively. So yeah, those rules help you to do that. The things that I've talked about. Have you remembered what your second point was?
I'm afraid not. No.
Laura, did you have something to say? Laura, you have just remembered, haven't you? Go on, Laura.
Okay.
Go.
First of all, the connection's quite bad. There's a time lag. That's why I keep switching off my video. Anyway, I want to say two things. One about the last point, which was that now I've forgotten it. I was going to say something about the quality of sort of, even if you don't agree with somebody, you can respect, understand them, and that we were just discussing like the Greek concepts of love, and how there's one definition of love called agape, which is a quality of love which you show to people when they're not showing their best. So they're actually showing their weakness or bad qualities, but you're showing compassion and generosity and patience to them. So it might be a kind of, you know, sympathy that you can have to like a tragic hero who you know is flawed, but you still have sympathy for them. And so you know that this person is not acting at their best, and you don't hate them for it. You still have compassion and sympathy for them, because you might understand that, you know, perhaps there are reasons why they're acting like that, because they've been under a lot of stress or something.
Yeah. Well,
so that I think is useful, you know, for everyday life.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, the example I gave was parents with their children when they're being brats. You know, they're screaming away to get something done and hating you because you're not allowing them to do whatever it is they want to do. That's where, you know, a parent is showing real love when they're holding the line there and you know, not allowing the child to get away with using emotional blackmail or even physical force to try and get their way. You know, that's a really good example, and parents do that all the time. But then when you get away from that strong bond of parenthood, people find it harder to do. And I think, you know, what we need to be doing as a society is developing that empathy for people that we're not connected with on a day-to-day basis. Just the person we meet in the street, the drunk who abuses us, or whatever it might be. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Okay. The last thing I want to just touch on is the fact that, you know, so we've talked about some principles for helping us find our best self, those 4 principles of coordinating mind and body. And we've talked about those 5 principles of how to work Aikido in a very positive manner and how they're transferable off the mat. But so much of what happens in your life doesn't necessarily involve other people. And COVID is the perfect example of that. You know, life happens. You're not in control of your life. You're in control of a tiny bit, but stuff happens that's completely beyond your control. And these principles help you go with the flow on that as well. You know, one of the things about COVID is no point saying it's not there. You have to you know, be aware that it's happening and take appropriate action to keep yourself safe. You have to accept that it's a nasty situation and there are some downsides to being locked down in your houses, etc. But maybe that's sensible. And you've got to respect that this thing kills. Yeah. You know, those rules apply just the same in those situations for helping you find a positive way through and seeing why what we're doing in the world today is going to get us to where we need to be, hopefully. Albeit that we might stumble occasionally along the way. Any thoughts? Okay, well, that's really all I wanted to share with you. When we can't grab each other's wrists, you don't get the power of feeling how these ideas work out in your body. We miss that. Of course we do. But remember, this is a mind and body art. And right now, body's out of the game to some degree. So this is our chance to use our minds and explore the ideas that Osensei was trying to get us to understand and to really hardwire those thoughts into our practice. Because I'm absolutely sure it will improve our practice when we do get back on the mat. But I'm equally certain that they will help you navigate yourself and your life in a much more positive way. So thank you ever so much for coming. Very happy to take questions, whatever you like.
Thank you.
That's my pleasure, Judith. Hope you're feeling better soon.
Quentin,
So do anyone have any comments, or should we just kind of bow out if you like?
I got one comment, Quentin.
Yeah.
You know, part of what's helped me with my Aikido on the mat, and still a bit of a challenge for me off the mat, is patience, and not insisting that I am correct. And usually on the mat, in the early days, you insist, you know, on making the technique work, and then of course your insistence becomes muscle and strength, and if you're big and strong, you can make it work. But holding on to to the outcome, having too much invested in winning and having the outcome winning. I finally got to a point where I could throw that away. I mean, just remember that. I go, you know, I'm just being so impatient. You had talked about, you know, the appropriate responses. I was not really in phase. I work in a science laboratory, and one day I was looking at an oscilloscope, and I said, you know, that's Aikido. This apparatus had to be in phase, otherwise this apparatus would die. And the oscilloscope was, you know, it's what we do in Aikido. There's an ups and there's downs, and when you're up and their down is not in phase, then you tend to struggle. But that's part about getting in harmony. And so that part of insisting and trying to be right, or trying to be the center of what's going on, rather than, oh, okay, well, the uke really doesn't want to move that way, or my uke is a little bit slower, so I'm going to have to find that pace. I'm going to have to wait until they make that step, not insist or push to make this step. So all of your points were very valid, at least in my point of view, and how I progressed through my understanding. So thank you.
Well, I have to say that what you're saying is so typical of all our experiences, and that we all go through that phase, and it illustrates my point that, you know, when we practice on the mat, it's really hard to not focus on the technique rather than the ideas. We all get lost in technique, and we all go through phases even now where we try to do the technique in a timing of our choosing rather than just letting it materialize. So I think your experience is just, well, we all do it. But of course, if patience is the thing that you want to cultivate, then practicing patience on the mat is a really powerful way of cultivating it off the mat.
Yeah.
Being prepared to wait for your partner to come to you, not, you know, stepping in and taking action, but, you know, just giving them the space to be where they're at. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Lovely.
Yeah, I think that, you know, included in that, and very important in dealing with conflict of any sort, is the whole idea of having an empty mind, or beginner's mind, and being constantly curious, constantly looking, is there more information I can have about what's going on for them or for myself, or about this situation here?
Absolutely. And again, just adding to that, it really shows you how important mindfulness is in Aikido, because you have to open up all your senses, all of them, to get the maximum amount of information. If you're just focusing on the grip, you miss so much. So you're right. Yeah, that curiosity is a wonderful skill to cultivate, I think. Does anyone else have anything they want to offer before we close out? Well, silence suggests that they don't. So I'm happy to bow to the audience. So thank you so much for coming. I want to thank Bo for setting this up. Bogdan Heretiu, he's the guy that's made all this happen. Brilliant job. It's wonderful to have people from all over the world getting together and participating. That's a very timely arrival, Bogdan. I just wanted to thank you for setting this up. There you are. The bell's gone. It's time.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for that.
Okay, bye.
Cheers.